Ladies and gentlemen, hear me well. The greatest investment you will ever make is in yourself. Not in the stock market, not in real estate, not even in a business. Because if you aren't built strong, everything you build will collapse. The title today is simple: focus on you until you win. See, too many people spend their lives looking left, looking right, looking back, comparing their chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20, and then they wonder why they feel stuck. You cannot build a skyscraper while staring at your neighbor's backyard. You've got to focus on you, your mind, your skills, your vision until the breakthrough comes. Clarity is power, and without it, people live their entire lives moving but never progressing. It's possible to be busy every single day and still be standing in the same place year after year, because business is not the same thing as progress. Clarity is the difference between a person with activity and a person with destiny. When you have clarity, you wake up in the morning knowing why you're here, what you're building, and where you're going. Most people don't fail because they don't have potential. They fail because they don't have direction. They're chasing what other people told them they should want, or they're copying what they see on social media, and they never stop to ask, what does winning actually look like for me? Clarity begins with vision. If you don't have a picture of your future that excites you, you'll keep falling into distractions that drain you. Vision is the picture that pulls you forward, even when the circumstances around you don't match it yet. A person with no vision is like a ship with no compass. It can move, it can float, but it can't reach a destination. When you have a clear vision, you stop asking, what should I do today? And you start asking, what must I do today to move closer to where I'm going? That single shift changes everything. When you lack clarity, you settle for less. You settle for jobs you don't love, relationships that don't grow you, and routines that shrink you. But when you gain clarity, suddenly your yes and your no carry more power. You stop saying yes to things that waste your energy because you know they don't line up with your mission. You stop entertaining people who pull you off course because you know their direction doesn't match your destination. Clarity gives you permission to stop being everywhere for everyone and finally be focused for yourself. Think about how powerful clarity is in even the smallest tasks. If I told you to go into a room and move things around, you might spend an hour rearranging without purpose. But if I told you, go into that room and find the red notebook on the second shelf, you'd walk straight to it and be done in seconds. Life works the same way. Without clarity, you burn time and energy on trial and error. With clarity, you move faster, more efficiently, and with greater confidence. Clarity doesn't just show you what to do, it shows you who you must become. If your vision is to build a business that impacts millions, clarity will reveal the character, the skills, and the discipline you need to develop in yourself. If your vision is to provide for your family on a new level, clarity will show you the financial habits, the work ethic, and the sacrifices necessary to get there. When you know where you're going, you also know what kind of person can get there, and that awareness begins to shape your daily actions. But here's the truth: clarity doesn't always come fully formed. Sometimes you only see the next step, and that's enough. Too many people are waiting for the whole staircase before they take the first step. They say, I'll move when I know everything, and so they never move at all. But clarity grows as you go. You take the step you can see, and from that step you see more. The key is to start where you are with what you know and trust that the process of moving forward will reveal more of the picture. Another important element of clarity is writing it down. Don't just think about your vision, document it. Write it, speak it, revisit it every day. The written vision becomes a map for your mind. It programs your subconscious to filter opportunities, ideas, and connections through the lens of your purpose. What you put on paper becomes what you prioritize, and what you prioritize becomes what you realize. Clarity also protects you from comparison. When you know your assignment, you don't waste time trying to measure your progress against someone else's. You realize they're running their race, but you're running yours. Clarity silences the noise because it reminds you, I don't have to do what they're doing. I have to do what I was called to do. That's where real confidence comes from. Not in being better than someone else, but in being focused on what you're uniquely designed to accomplish. People often underestimate the power of clarity because it seems so simple. But look at anyone who's truly successful, whether in business, sports, or life, and you'll notice they have crystal clear vision. They can articulate where they're going, why they're going there, and what it will look like when they arrive. That's why their actions are intentional. That's why their energy is concentrated. That's why their results are consistent. Clarity is power because it fuels passion. When you're clear on your vision, you don't need external motivation to keep going. You wake up excited because you know what today means in the grand scheme of where you're headed. You know that today's effort isn't wasted. It's a brick in the building of your future. Clarity takes ordinary days and turns them into extraordinary opportunities. It transforms the mundane into meaningful. And it gives you the resilience to keep pushing even when life gets heavy, because you know exactly why you're pushing. Discipline over distractions is the line that separates those who dream from those who achieve. Everyone wants success, but not everyone is willing to create the habits that success demands. Distractions are cheap, easy, and everywhere. Discipline is costly, demanding, and rare. The truth is most people don't fail because they aren't capable. They fail because they're distracted. They allow the urgent to steal from the important and the temporary to steal from the eternal. Discipline is not about punishment. It's about alignment. It's aligning your actions with your vision, even when your feelings don't agree. Feelings are fickle. They rise and fall like waves. If you wait to feel like doing the work, you'll spend your life waiting. Discipline says, I don't care how I feel. I care about what I committed to. Every great achievement is built on that principle. Nobody feels like waking up early, studying harder, or practicing longer, but discipline creates champions where comfort never could. Look around and you'll see distractions disguised as opportunities. Social media promises entertainment but steals your hours. Toxic relationships promise connection but drain your energy. Comfort promises rest but steals your progress. Without discipline, you trade your future for what feels good in the moment. With discipline, you trade the moment for what feels good in the future. That is the essence of winning, choosing long-term fulfillment over short-term pleasure. Think about the athletes who spend years training for a race that lasts seconds. They don't do it because every training day feels good. They do it because discipline bridges the gap between preparation and victory. Discipline teaches your body who's in control. Discipline tells your mind what matters. Discipline makes sure your goals aren't just fantasies, but realities. Distractions are louder today than ever before. And if you don't have a clear system of discipline, you'll get pulled in every direction. You can't scroll your way into success. You can't binge watch your way into financial freedom. You can't gossip your way into purpose. Every moment you spend feeding distractions is a moment you could have been building destiny. Success requires sacrifice, and the first sacrifice is comfort. Discipline is the key to controlling your time instead of letting your time control you. Most people underestimate the compound power of daily discipline. It doesn't always look glamorous. It's not always visible to others. But discipline builds silently, then reveals itself loudly. Reading one page a day doesn't look like much until your mind shifts. Saving a small amount every week doesn't look like much until your financial freedom increases. Making one call a day doesn't look like much until your network multiplies. Discipline compounds quietly until the breakthrough becomes public. Another truth about discipline is that it's not about perfection, it's about persistence. You will have off days, you will fall short. But discipline means you get back on track faster, you realign yourself quicker, and you refuse to let temporary slips become permanent setbacks. Discipline doesn't demand that you never fail. It demands that you never quit. Discipline also acts as a filter. It shows you what deserves your energy and what doesn't. Without discipline, you say yes to everything and wonder why you feel drained. With discipline, you say no to what doesn't serve your vision. You conserve your energy for what moves you forward. The world will try to pull you in every direction, but discipline gives you the courage to stay in your lane. It's also important to recognize that discipline creates freedom. At first, it feels restrictive, saying no to late nights, limiting distractions, cutting out unhealthy patterns. But in reality, discipline frees you from regret. It frees you from wasted years. It frees you from being controlled by your weaknesses. The disciplined life might look strict on the surface, but it produces the kind of freedom the distracted life can never touch. Consider the simple truth. You are either a slave to discipline or a slave to distractions. One leads to growth, the other to regret. One demands work now and pays later. The other pays now but costs you later. Discipline always feels like a burden in the beginning, but in the end, it feels like victory. Distraction always feels like joy in the beginning, but in the end, it feels like loss. That's why the people who win are not necessarily the smartest or the most talented. They are simply the most disciplined. When you master discipline, you master consistency. And consistency is what multiplies effort into results. Talent without discipline fades. Inspiration without discipline dies. Opportunity without discipline is wasted. But even average talent fueled by daily discipline will outlast raw brilliance that refuses to be consistent. Discipline is the equalizer. It turns potential into performance and dreams into reality. Value your own growth because the world will only pay you for the value you bring, not for the potential you carry. Potential is invisible currency, but growth turns that potential into actual wealth, impact, and influence. Too many people wait for others to notice their greatness before they start investing in themselves. They wait for validation, for recognition, for applause. But growth doesn't come from outside approval. It comes from an internal decision to develop who you are and what you can do. The truth is, the more valuable you make yourself, the more valuable you become to others. Growth is not automatic. It is intentional. You don't wake up one day wiser, stronger, or more skilled simply because time passed. Age does not equal growth. Experience does not equal growth. Reflection, learning, and application equal growth. The difference between people who stay the same and people who level up year after year is not luck. It's the choice to grow. Every day you have the opportunity to learn something new, to practice something difficult, to sharpen a skill, to stretch your mindset. Those small decisions accumulate into transformation. When you value your own growth, you stop being cheap with yourself. You stop hesitating to invest in books, courses, coaching, or environments that challenge you. You realize that the cost of growth is far less than the cost of staying the same. Staying the same costs you opportunities, relationships, income, and purpose. Growth costs time, energy, and sometimes money, but it gives you back all those things multiplied. The world doesn't reward people for what they know. It rewards people for how they use what they know to solve problems, meet needs, and create solutions. That requires growth. Growth also requires humility. You can't grow if you believe you already know it all. The moment you think you've arrived is the moment you stop progressing. Growth means being willing to sit at the feet of someone who knows more than you, to ask questions instead of pretending you have all the answers, and to be teachable even when it hurts your pride. Humility opens the door to growth because it positions you to receive wisdom, correction, and perspective that you can't get on your own. Valuing your own growth also changes how you handle time. People who don't value growth waste hours, days, and years on meaningless activities. They treat time like it's infinite, when in reality, it's the most limited resource they have. People who value growth see time differently. They ask, what am I doing today that's preparing me for tomorrow? They treat time as a seed that must be planted carefully if it's ever going to produce a harvest. The books you read, the skills you develop, the people you spend time with, those are investments of time that either multiply your growth or steal it. Another aspect of growth is embracing discomfort. Growth never happens in comfort zones. Comfort is where dreams go to die, because comfort tells you that what you have is good enough, while your potential screams that there is more inside you. Growth demands that you step into challenges you don't feel ready for, take risks that stretch your confidence, and push through moments of failure without quitting. Every breakthrough is born out of resistance, and every skill you master was once something that made you uncomfortable. When you value growth, you stop competing with others and start competing with your previous self. You measure progress not by comparison, but by transformation. You don't ask, am I ahead of them? You ask, am I further than I was yesterday? That mindset creates consistency because your standard is internal, not external. As long as you're committed to being better today than you were yesterday, growth becomes inevitable. Growth also shifts your identity. As you grow, you stop identifying yourself by your past limitations and start identifying yourself by your future potential. You stop saying, I'm just not good at this. And you start saying, I'm in the process of mastering this. You stop labeling yourself by past failures and start defining yourself by current progress. Growth rewires how you see yourself, and when you see yourself differently, you show up differently in every area of life. Finally, valuing your growth prepares you for opportunities before they arrive. Most people miss out on success because when the door opened, they weren't ready to walk through it. Growth ensures that when opportunity shows up, you're equipped, skilled, and confident enough to seize it. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your preparation, and growth is preparation in motion. By the time the opportunity arrives, it's too late to get ready. You must already be ready. Patience with progress is one of the hardest lessons for people who want to win, because we live in a world that rewards speed but overlooks process. Everything around us screams now. Fast to instant downloads, quick likes, same-day shipping. And because the world is built on immediacy, people carry that expectation into their goals, their dreams, and their vision. They think if it doesn't happen in a week, a month, or a year, then it must not be working. But the truth is, success is built like a seed planted in the soil. You don't see the roots forming underground, but the growth is happening. You don't dig it up every day to check if it's working. You trust the process and keep watering it. Progress works the same way. Patience is not sitting around doing nothing. Patience is the ability to keep working, keep believing, and keep moving even when the results aren't showing up yet. People confuse patience with passivity, but they are not the same thing. Passivity is waiting for life to hand you something. Patience is preparing for the result you know is coming. It is the discipline of holding steady in the face of delay. It is the strength to endure the time gap between planning and harvesting. The reason patience is so difficult is because progress often feels invisible. You go to the gym for a week and don't see change. You study a new skill for months and still feel behind. You save money and the account grows too slowly. But invisible progress is still progress. The roots grow before the fruit shows. The foundation is laid before the building rises. The behind-the-scenes work always precedes the spotlight, and if you quit too soon, you rob yourself of the harvest that was already forming. Patience with progress also means rejecting comparison. When you see someone else achieving faster, it's easy to think something is wrong with your journey. But comparison is a thief because it ignores the reality that everyone's timeline is different. What looks like overnight success for them may have been years of struggle hidden from view. The seed they planted may have been watered longer than yours, and now you're seeing their harvest. Your job is not to compare your chapter 2 to someone else's chapter 20. Your job is to keep watering your seed until your season arrives. Another part of patience is understanding that mastery takes time. Nobody becomes world class at anything overnight. Every expert was once a beginner fumbling through the basics. Every professional failed more times in practice than they succeeded in performance. Progress is layered. You build skill on top of skill, lesson on top of lesson, until eventually the results are undeniable. The problem is most people quit at the layer before the breakthrough. They think the lack of immediate results means the effort is wasted, when in reality the effort is compounding underneath the surface. Patience also means embracing small wins. Too often people dismiss the little steps forward because they don't look like the big picture yet. But small wins are proof that progress is happening. Every page you read, every dollar you save, every rep you complete, every conversation you master is a brick in the structure of your future. Big victories are just small wins compounded over time. When you learn to celebrate small wins, you fuel yourself to keep going until the larger picture comes into view. Patience with progress requires trust in the process. Trust that if you show up consistently, the results will come. Trust that if you stay faithful to the work, the reward will manifest. Trust doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means understanding how reality works. Seeds take time to grow. Muscles take time to build. Businesses take time to stabilize. Relationships take time to deepen. Every worthwhile thing requires time, and no shortcut can substitute for that time. The beauty of patience is that it builds character. Waiting strengthens you. Delays refine you. The process develops parts of you that instant success could never create. If everything came quickly, you would not develop resilience, endurance, or wisdom. Patience teaches you how to handle pressure, how to persist without applause, and how to keep your vision alive when nobody else believes. It stretches your faith in yourself and in the purpose you're pursuing. Impatience is the enemy of growth because impatience pushes you to quit, to rush, or to settle. When you quit, you give up on what could have been. When you rush, you compromise the quality of your results. When you settle, you accept less than what you were capable of achieving. Patience keeps you steady. It anchors you in discipline so you don't sabotage your own progress. It reminds you that the longer it takes, the stronger the foundation being built. It shifts your focus from speed to sustainability, from immediate gratification to lasting transformation. Turn pain into fuel because pain is not just an obstacle, it is information. Pain is feedback. It tells you where growth is required, where strength is being built, and where you are being shaped into someone greater. Most people try to avoid pain at all costs, but the truth is nothing valuable is built without it. Muscles don't grow without resistance. Diamonds aren't formed without pressure. Champions aren't made without struggle. Pain is not the enemy. It's the teacher, the trainer, the refiner. What you do with it determines whether it destroys you or develops you. Pain reveals the gap between where you are and where you want to be. When life hits you with disappointment, rejection, or failure, it's easy to see that as a sign to quit. But pain is simply highlighting the area that needs your attention. If rejection stings, it's showing you the importance of resilience. If failure burns, it's showing you the necessity of persistence. If loss breaks you, it's teaching you to rebuild stronger. Pain forces you to confront the reality of your growth and demands that you respond. Every person who has achieved greatness has a story of pain. They went through setbacks, heartbreaks, losses, and challenges, but instead of letting the pain break them, they used it as motivation to push forward. Pain can either make you bitter or it can make you better. The difference lies in your perspective. When you see pain as punishment, you shrink. When you see pain as preparation, you rise. Turning pain into fuel means you no longer run from struggle, you harness it. You take the energy of frustration, anger, or sadness and redirect it into action. Instead of complaining, you create. Instead of quitting, you commit. Instead of shrinking back, you step up. The same fire that can burn you can also light your way if you choose to use it differently. Pain is energy, and energy can be transformed. Pain also teaches you empathy and depth. People who have never struggled often lack understanding of others. But those who have been through valleys, who have walked through storms, who have felt the weight of pressure, those people have a richness of perspective. They can connect with others, inspire others, and lead others because they know what it feels like to suffer and still rise. Pain stretches not just your strength, but your heart. It deepens your capacity to influence because it makes you real, relatable, and resilient. There is also a hidden advantage in pain. It forces innovation. When everything is comfortable, there is no need to change, no urgency to grow, no reason to adapt. But pain disrupts comfort. It demands solutions. It forces creativity. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in business, art, science, and personal lives were birthed out of seasons of pain. When doors closed, when options ran out, when the pressure mounted, innovation was born. Pain squeezes out of you ideas and strength you didn't know you had. Another aspect of turning pain into fuel is discipline. Pain often tempts people to escape through distractions, but discipline chooses to channel it. A setback can drive you into depression, or it can drive you into development. A loss can make you collapse, or it can make you construct something greater. Pain will always knock on the door, but discipline decides whether you let it in as a thief or as a teacher. Pain also builds endurance. Every time you push through what you thought you couldn't handle, you expand your capacity. The weights that once felt impossible become manageable. The situations that used to break you no longer shake you. Endurance is built by enduring, and endurance becomes the foundation for long-term success. People admire strength, but strength is only developed by lifting the weight of struggle. Most importantly, pain changes your identity if you let it. Struggles reveal strength you didn't know existed. Hardship awakens courage you didn't realize you had. Loss forces you to reimagine who you are and what you are capable of becoming. When you survive what was designed to break you, you come out on the other side with unshakable confidence. Pain doesn't just test you, it transforms you. The version of you that emerges from pain is not the same as the version that entered it. Turning pain into fuel is about rewriting the story. Instead of saying, this happened to me, so I can't move forward, you say, this happened to me, so I must move forward. Instead of seeing pain as a period, you see it as a comma. It's not the end of the sentence, it's the continuation of the story. Pain forces a decision, stay stuck or step up. And those who choose to step up use that pain as momentum to climb higher than they ever could without it. Finish what you start, because beginnings are easy, but finishing is rare. Starting carries excitement, energy, and hope. Everyone loves the spark of a new idea, the thrill of a new journey, the rush of a fresh vision. But somewhere between the start and the finish line, reality shows up, challenges rise, obstacles appear, and the enthusiasm that carried you in the beginning no longer feels strong enough. This is where most people stop. They live in cycles of starting and quitting, beginning and abandoning, dreaming and never delivering. The world is full of unfinished projects, abandoned goals, and wasted potential because people never mastered the discipline of finishing. Finishing is what separates dreamers from achievers. Dreams are cheap because anyone can have them. Goals are common because anyone can write them down. But finishing requires endurance, persistence, and resilience. Finishing means refusing to let excuses dictate your progress. It means pushing through boredom when the excitement fades, grinding through obstacles when the path gets hard, and committing to completion even when nobody is cheering. If starting makes you hopeful, finishing makes you valuable. The power of finishing lies in the fact that completion carries credibility. Nobody pays for half-written books, half-built houses, or half-finished performances. Value is in the finished product. The world rewards execution, not intention. It doesn't matter how good the idea is if it never becomes reality. It doesn't matter how passionate the dream is if it never gets delivered. The marketplace, the community, and even your own sense of fulfillment rise when you can say, it is done. One reason people struggle to finish is because they underestimate the resistance that comes after the start. At first, energy is high, motivation is fresh, and possibilities feel endless. But resistance grows as you move forward. Distractions become louder, fear becomes stronger, and comfort becomes more tempting. That's not a sign to stop. It's a test to see if you're serious. Finishing requires the ability to outlast resistance, to keep walking even when the road feels long, to keep climbing even when the mountain feels steep, to keep building even when progress feels slow. Another reason finishing feels so difficult is because perfection gets in the way. People stop because it doesn't look as good as they imagined. They abandon the work because it feels messy, flawed, or incomplete. But perfection is the enemy of progress. Finishing something imperfect is always better than abandoning something perfect in your imagination. Completion can always be refined, but you can't refine what doesn't exist. Stop waiting for perfect conditions, perfect timing, or perfect execution. The finish line doesn't require perfection, it requires persistence. Finishing what you start also builds identity. Every time you complete something, you reinforce the belief that you are capable, dependable, and resilient. Every time you quit, you reinforce the belief that you can't be trusted with your own goals. Finishing is not just about the project. It's about who you become in the process. Confidence comes from completion. Trust in yourself comes from seeing yourself finish what you once only imagined. The habit of finishing compounds just like the habit of quitting. If you practice quitting, you'll quit more often. If you practice finishing, you'll finish more often. Every completion makes the next one easier, because your mind and body get used to pushing through difficulty instead of retreating from it. Over time, this creates momentum, and momentum multiplies results. That's why some people seem unstoppable. They've simply trained themselves to finish over and over until it became part of their nature. Finishing also unlocks opportunities you would never see otherwise. Many doors only open for those who cross the line. Investors don't invest in potential, they invest in results. Employers don't promote effort, they promote execution. Clients don't pay for unfinished work, they pay for outcomes. Completion positions you for the next level. It signals that you're reliable, that you can be trusted, and that you are prepared for bigger responsibilities. Finally, finishing requires a decision that no matter how long it takes, how hard it feels, or how many times you fall along the way, you will not stop until the goal is achieved. Commitment is not proven at the beginning, it is proven at the end. Anyone can start with passion, but only the dedicated finish with power. Finishing demands that you silence excuses, manage distractions, embrace imperfection, and push through resistance until the vision becomes reality.